welcome to this episode of Geography Girl. I hope you're feeling festive and cozy, and I would love for you to grab a cup of tea and join me for this look into Russia and its incredibly complex and fascinating history with Christmas. Christianity and Christmas was brought first to the region in 988 when Vladimir the Great converted to Christianity. He was the emperor of Kievan Rus, the first East Slavic state, which was the predecessor to Russia. Many celebrations and rituals around this time, which was known as Kaleido, were inspired by Slavic paganism, which honoured the sun during the northern hemisphere winter solstice. For centuries, Russians observed Christmas in the traditions of the Eastern Orthodox Church and therefore celebrate Christmas on the 12th day, which is January the 6th, rather than the 25th of December in accordance with the Julian calendar. Over the centuries, these traditions accumulated. In the 11th century, Prince Vladimir travelled to Constantinople and came back with stories of miracles performed by St. Nicholas of Myra, who was the inspiration for St. Nicholas, who became widely popular in Russian Christmas traditions and who we'll be talking about later. Many other Christmas traditions, such as the Christmas tree and the practice of gift-giving, came to Russia in the 19th century through the influence of Tsarina Alexandra, who was Prussian originally. It wasn't until World War I where we start to see some distance being made between the nation and Christmas traditions. The first ban was on Christmas trees, which took place in World War I, where Russia was keen to sever ties with all things German. Between 1921 and 1928, the state entered a period of anti-religious campaign, eliminating all religion and replacing it with scientific materialism. It was not illegal to have faith, and so activities of this campaign were veiled under the pretext that usually included resistance to the regime. For example, in 1921, the state took a hard line against the Orthodox Church on the pretext that it represented a legacy of the Tsarist past. The church leaders demanded freedom of religion, and to that, the communists responded with terror, executing 28 bishops and 6,700 priests. With a state-led policy of atheism, religion was both a medicine for the oppressed against the suffering of exploitation and a means of spiritual oppression in the hands of the oppressors. Faith had to become private and was made invisible as possible. The state could not tolerate a religious leader who could potentially inspire and lead millions of people. In the 1920s, the leader of a militant atheist group encouraged pupils to campaign against Christmas traditions, including the Christmas tree, and encouraged them to spit on crucifix in protest against the holiday. So many Christmas traditions were either discontinued or found a new secular meaning or were practiced in secret. The Bolsheviks did somewhat reinstate some celebrations, with Lenin himself taking part in children's New Year's parties. The authorities did encourage the return of the tree, with Lenin visiting a forest school in Moscow in 1919, where a New Year's celebration that included a tree was arranged. Lenin's secretary recalled, "They took him from the adults, dragged him away to drink tea, eat treats, and give him jam. And he gave them nuts, poured tea, and watched everyone closely, as though all of them were his family. Nothing could have been done about the kids. They captivated Vladimir Ilyich completely." There were attempts to re-envisage Christmas as a communist holiday. Christmas, as I'm sure you can imagine, brought with it a fair bit of criticism for being bourgeois and religious, which is fundamentally opposed to the ideals of communism. In this vein, in 1927, Stalin gave a speech in which he pointed out all the flaws in the Communist Party's work. We also have another flaw: the weakening of the anti-religious struggle. In 1929, the government published a decree declaring that Christmas and New Year's were working days and were not considered holidays anymore. Cutting down and selling of conifer trees was also prohibited. Volunteers were tasked with monitoring compliance with the new law, going from one apartment to the next to check if a Christmas tree was being put up in secret. Soviet writer Iranka Tokmakova remembered the glorious holiday of Christmas was banned, and those who dared to celebrate it could pay with their job or even their freedom. In a surprising change of direction, during a long and cold winter in 1935, Stalin declared that trees would make a comeback. What was once banned and deemed an economic evil was now compulsory, with Christmas tree parties arranged in all corners of the country, but at New Year's instead to remove the religious connotations. The first Christmas tree party was an exclusive event for high-achieving students, Soviet Boy or Girl Scouts, and children of industrial leaders. And this was where Russian Santa Claus and his granddaughter reappeared. Russian Santa Claus, or Ded Moroz, had as difficult time as the Christmas tree. being banished into exile in 1928, having been unmasked as an ally of the priest and of the Gulag, supposedly rich peasants who the Communist Party considered a threat to their power. Stalin in 1935, however, decided to bring Ded Moroz back from exile as part of his efforts to boost his popularity and assert stability. After a long period of forced collectivization, violent uprising that sent 1 million people to prison camps, and famine that killed 5 million people. Ded Moroz has his roots in pagan mythology. In the original story, Morozko is considered a snow demon, kidnapping children from their families, and instead of leaving gifts, he would demand that he receive gifts in exchange for the safe return. Ded Moroz also had the ability to control water, from which he would forge chains as strong as iron. This eventually evolved into a gift-giving man dressed in red to symbolize communism rather than Coca-Cola as he does in the West. Santa was originally blue, green or brown. Instead of being fat and jolly, he's lean with cold hands and rides a sleigh pulled by horses. Ever the patriot, his homestead can be located in a small village near Veliki Ustug in the Vologda region, just a few hours north of Moscow. Hundreds of thousands of visitors came to see his grand palatial wooden home each year, which is open to visitors. He lives in an enchanted forest filled with menagerie of fairy tale and real-life creatures such as the endangered Siberian reindeer, talking magpies, and houses with chicken legs to ride on. There are some incredible Christmas cartoons which depict just that and are absolutely to die for. Ded Moroz was an active communist and spent his downtime promoting causes. He often was pictured promoting the benefits of space travel and the Soviets' dominances in the skies. By the end of the 1980s, the Soviet Union was crumbling. For many, it was time to ditch Ded Moroz for the fat man himself, Santa Claus. Ded Moroz got one last bit of revenge by signing for Pepsi and persevered as a national icon, even gaining endorsement by Putin himself. There is one last story I want to tell about Russia's relationship with Christmas. I'm going to start by saying that I'm not even going to be able to scratch the surface of this topic. On December 25, 1991, the Soviet hammer and sickle flag lowered for the first time over the Kremlin and was replaced by the Russian three colours. Earlier in the day, Mikhail Gorbachev had resigned as his post of president in the Soviet Union, leaving Boris Yeltsin as the president of a newly independent Russian state. People from all over the world watched on as this relatively peaceful transition from a former communist monolith into multiple separate nations. You can have a very quiet Christmas evening, wished Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev to American President George H.W. Bush. I'm saying goodbye and shaking your hand. And with that, the USSR was officially over. The termination of a country that had persecuted religious believers since 1917 had ended on Christmas Day in the West. Religion, according to Karl Marx, was the opiate of the masses, a fantasy enlisted to exploit the working class. Yet, on Christmas Day, Soviet communism proved that to be illusory. The day where Gorbachev announced his resignation, marking the Soviet Union a complete dissolution. This society has acquired freedom, Gorbachev said. It has been freed politically and spiritually, and this is the most important achievement that we have yet fully to come to grips with. And that's it for today's episode of Geography Girl. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm ever fascinated with Russia and its history, and this story has not disappointed. I'm sure there's so much more to this story that I could have included, and if there's anything that you would like to share, please do put it in the comments, as I would love to hear your thoughts. I'd also love for you to subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video. I bring out new videos every Tuesday and it really helps me to grow. I would love to reach 100 subscribers, please. And yeah, thank you, and I will see you next time.